welcome back to my channel. And if you are visiting this page for the first time, you are also highly welcome. In this lecture, we'll be looking at ovulation. Ovulation is the release of a mature egg from the ovary. The process of ovulation goes beyond a mere release of a mature egg from the ovary. There are a number of mechanisms that must be exhibited before the process of the release of an egg can occur. In this lecture, we'll be looking at the hormonal influences behind this process and also the structural implications that these hormones exhibit. Ovulation, we say, is the release of a mature egg from the ovary. Let's say this is the structural configuration of the ovary using this image here. And of course, within the ovary, we have a number of follicles growing at different paces. And the most mature is seen to release its egg at this point here that is already in dotted black. And of course, the process of the release of this mature egg is what is referred to as ovulation. If you look at this process, it occurs around the middle of the 28 days menstrual cycle. The 28 days menstrual cycle is the duration between one menstrual period to the other. And using this image down here, the circular configuration here highlighted in blue is used to represent the 28 days menstrual cycle. And about the middle of this 28 days menstrual cycle is where we have the release of a mature egg that is termed ovulation. So we can establish the timing of ovulation. So it's seen to occur around the middle of the 28 days menstrual cycle. So what initiates the process of ovulation? We say that ovulation goes beyond the mere release of a mature egg from the ovary. There are a number of events that must occur before this release must be initiated. Going back to the roots of what initiates the process of ovulation, we say that ovulation is initiated from the release of gonadotropin-releasing hormone. So let's try and dive into this. So let's say this is where we have the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is one of the structural components of the diencephalon. I've done a lecture on the diencephalon. If you've not checked that lecture, please kindly go and do so. The hypothalamus is part of the diencephalon, of course, that is embedded within the cerebrum hemisphere. And we have the pituitary gland also closely related to it. So going back to the hypothalamus is seen to secrete the gonadotropin-releasing hormone. The gonadotropin-releasing hormone, from here breaking down the name, that means it is a hormone that is responsible for the release of gonadotropin. And that is why it is so named gonadotropin-releasing hormone. So this hormone is released by the hypothalamus through an endocrine pattern, which means it is released into the bloodstream, where it then goes further to target the pituitary gland, specifically the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland. And the gonadotropin-releasing hormone that is produced by the hypothalamus will then stimulate the pituitary gland to release gonadotropins, because this is what this hormone is designed to do, to stimulate the release of gonadotropins. So we now have the pituitary gland, specifically the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland, producing gonadotropins, which are basically follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. These hormones are also delivered into the bloodstream. What they target is the ovary. In the ovary, they begin to stimulate the process of folliculogenesis. So you can see how these hormones released in the brain, delivered into the bloodstream, and are seen to target the ovary, where they begin to stimulate follicular growth and also development. So within the ovary, you have follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone exerting their effect in the ovary, whereby they now begin to stimulate the development of ovarian follicle. So you now have the primordial follicle, which is the embryonic derived follicle that is then stimulated to begin to develop, and this is further transformed into the primary follicle, and this is the unilaminar primary follicle that can also be referred to as the early primary follicle. And this is also further developed or transformed into the late primary ovarian follicle, which is also referred to as the multilaminar primary follicle. So you see how the primordial follicle is transformed into the early and the late primary follicle. From the primary follicle, we then have the secondary ovarian follicle. From the secondary ovarian follicle, we then have the tertiary or the mature or Graafian follicle. Final terminal growth level of the ovarian follicle, which is the mature ovarian follicle. And of course, at this stage, the follicle is ready to be released because it has now attained its full maturity. But of course, the egg is not just also released at this point, even though we then have the mature ovarian follicle that is ready to be released. A number of hormonal coordinated events will also need to occur before the process of this release will be initiated. So we have the production of estrogen. We know that estrogen basically is produced by the ovarian follicle. Specifically, it is produced by the granulosa cell. Because we have follicles growing from one stage to the other, there's going to be the proliferation of the granulosa cell, which is responsible for the production of estrogen. This means that the production of estrogen will continuously increase. And of course, at this point of maturity, it would have gotten to the peak. So when we have a peak of estrogen, this is going to trigger the surge in LH. So this surge in luteinizing hormone is what is initiated. And under 24 hours, the egg will be released. So we see that we have a number of coordinated hormonal events that must occur before the follicles will begin to grow from the primordial stage to the final terminal stage. And even when they attain the final terminal stage, another hormonal event will also be set in place for the egg to be released. So ovulation basically is not seen to just occur as we've described when we started this lecture. It is under the influence of hormone, and these hormones need to be well regulated and of course coordinated for this event to occur. Under this coordinated hormonal event, which will have structural implication, and the structural implication will be that the primordial ovarian follicle will be transformed into mature ovarian follicle. And finally, the surge in LH will then stimulate the release of a mature egg at this point here that is arrowed in dotted purple. So thanks for watching this video. Let's continue to stay glued to this channel.